So now let's talk about photo mode. So I'm going to go over here to photo mode. Okay. And what you see is the user interface has completely changed, right? We were in what was called build mode. This is where you build up your scene. This is where you render your scene. Okay. So you've got a little viewport here. I can click and do all my navigation in here. And here I'm basically setting up the camera, right? So if I position the camera down here and I look up, this is where the rendering is going to be taken from. This is different from in here. In here, this is where I can place everything. I can't render from here, okay? But here I can. And they do go hand in hand. So like based on where you are in build mode, it'll carry over. But the cool thing about render mode is you can actually save these hotspots. So if I click this, right, and then I go back to build mode and then fly around, okay, so now I'm on the side of the house, and then go back here, I can actually go back and restore the view by just clicking it. The nice thing about this is you can have different time of days, different visibility settings, different layer settings, different style settings saved to the actual scene, which is really huge. You actually don't need to do everything in build mode. You can just do it here and it will have a different output. So how Lumion works is when it comes to renderings, you've got your camera settings here. You've got, the height. You've got your focal length, right? So if I do this, this is kind of like a fisheye. If I do this, it's more zoomed in. Yeah. Okay. We've got heading. This is your rotation, right? And then you've got your pitch. Okay. Generally, I want this at 0. Okay. And then this is the aspect ratio. So this is new to Lumion, but you can do much more than just landscape. You can do squares, you can do verticals. You've got all these different options, and you can also flip them, which is nice depending on the type of content you need. But generally speaking, since most houses are like wide and most of this content is viewed on like a computer, 16:9 is a good option. 1:1 if it's social media. If you are planning to upload to social media, you might want to flip this so it's portrait, right? But for our clients, they usually want landscape, right? So I kind of like this position. I've played a little bit with the focal length. This, just like my preference, I like to be about 25 and above. Anything below just looks super weird. Anything above is super zoomed in. So personally, I'm somewhere around here, 35. Okay, and I'm just going to go here where it says store camera, and I've saved that, right? And it's always important to think about your camera height. As humans, we always like to view spaces at eye height. So I want to make sure I'm not like too high or too low because it just looks weird, right? And that's why this is really nice, because you can actually customize how high you are. And you can also straighten out your view by setting the eye height at the right level and just going boop, boop, boop. Okay, great. And you'll notice that we have this grid that appears. That's your rule of thirds grids. And basically this is, photography 101, but you want something interesting to happen at the intersection, right? So here, if I align my bottom line with the roof, right? Got that. And I've got my dormer coming in here, right? I want to kind of move that over. Yeah, exactly. Okay, and I want to get the top of the roof right there. Okay, cool. So I'm happy with this. I'm just going to move it slightly over there, and I'm just going to save this. Okay. So I was saying earlier how, each scene can have a different time of day. That's all driven by effects. And what we're going to populate here are effect stacks. So just to show you briefly, if I go to our template, right, and I'm going to grab evening, just so you can see. We have all these different effects that are contributing to the final look. If I go to a different view, that changes. So that's what I'm saying. You have full control over each scene. So here I can toggle things on and off, right? So that's real skies. That's giving us the sun here. There's some color correction, which is making it that blue color. 2-point perspective. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, check this out. If I go over here and I look down, you see how everything's distorted? It's because it's trying to make all my verticals perfectly straight. And that's something we will need whenever we do architectural photography. I'm just going to go back. And we've got fog and everything, but this is my point. You can have all these different effects. So I'm just going to clear the effect list right here. Okay. and we're going to build up our own. But just do know, if you're in a rush, you can grab, some of these presets. You'll see here that it says RT. That stands for ray trace. Okay, so ray trace is a brand new rendering engine that was added to Lumion, which actually condenses the need for all those crazy effect stacks to a much simpler stack. So to illustrate that, I want to show you. So to illustrate that, Lumion actually just released this really nice video kind of showing the difference between the effect stack workflow that we were used to in older versions of Lumion versus the ray trace. So you see that FX there, right? That's what we're looking at back here, right? It's the same thing. So watch what happens. So back in the day, you would need to add real skies, which was the HDRI, all these different effects, hyperlight for global illumination, exposure for camera control, and you wind up having like 10 to 15 different effects. Now with ray tracing, basically condense a lot of those features into one, and really all you need is your sun, some color correction, and if you want weather, right? So we're talking about like 15 to 4. So it actually made things a lot quicker, a lot easier, and much more realistic. The only downside is you need to make sure that your hardware actually supports ray tracing. So it's good that they offer both, but ray tracing has actually been a huge game changer. So if you see RT, that's what's happening there. So if I click this, that's that ray tracing I was talking about, with that 2-point perspective to fix the verticals, the real skies for the HDRI, color correction for the color of the image, a sharpen effect. Okay, and then lens flare, this is basically where when light hits the camera, we'll see like an artifact, and that's lens flare. And here's an example on the screen, just so you can see what happens. It basically makes the sun glow, right?